The next day Amon, Nils and Ito start going to the dungeon as a group. While Nils and Amon battle goblins head-on, Ito stays at the back assisting and healing them whenever they get hurt. As Nils collects magic stones from the slain goblins, Ito heals Amon, chatting nervously about how unexpectedly dangerous these goblins turned out to be. Nils quickly suggests they should retreat for now since pushing any further would be suicide. Ito fully agrees, especially since encountering goblin archers on only the 4th floor is terrible news. However, Amon strongly argues that he still wants to hunt a few more monsters and earn extra cash, but Nils strongly reminds him of Abel's advice never to risk their lives over small gains. Eventually Amon gave up and they returned safely to the surface. Turns out that decision saved their lives because just a few floors below them, another adventurer group was wiped out by a terrifyingly strong monster. Back on the surface, Rio reflects on how Leonore's magic skills were absolutely ridiculous, though he at least matched her in casting speed. Rio resolves to double down on his strengths and shore up his weaknesses, recalling how he struggled to keep pace with Leonore's incredible movement speed the previous day. Though Rio briefly envies her wind magic, quickly shakes off jealousy, determined to figure out his own unique solution instead. Rio decides to test whether using water jets to propel himself would work above ground. After all, it worked pretty well underwater. First, Rio creates a slippery ice platform in front of himself, then fires off hundreds of small water jets from his back to push himself forward. Unfortunately, all this effort results in him moving not as fast as she does. Frustrated with the embarrassingly slow result, Rio sighs, saying it's a work in progress. Then, Rio heads to the library, hoping to learn more about demons and alchemy. Coincidentally, at the same time, Rin is also studying there, and she is desperately reading through records to see if there is any mention of a spell capable of creating an ice block sturdy enough to crush golems, but finds absolutely nothing. Rin smugly concludes that Rio must be some kind of scammer tricking Abel, reassuring herself that only the greatest wizard on the continent could pull off magic that powerful. Satisfied with her theory, Rin puts the book back on the shelf, just as she spots the elf girl Sarah. The two exchange greetings and briefly chat before Sarah remembers she is supposed to meet someone, so she has to leave. Meanwhile, Amon and the others return to the guild, and Nils immediately starts stuttering when he sees Nina. Ito quickly hits him on the head, snapping Nils out of it, and calmly informs Nina that they have discovered goblin archers roaming around on the 5th floor, a completely unheard of situation. So they returned immediately to report this alarming news. Nina carefully examines the magic stones as proof, instantly confirming their authenticity and urgently thanking the group before rushing off to alert the guild master. Guild Master Hugh is not happy at all when he learns about goblins appearing on the 5th floor, because these goblins should only show up deeper in the 10th. Hugh grimly senses this could hint at something far worse brewing underground and instructs Nina to summon every B rank or higher adventuring party available immediately. Nina hesitantly informs him that right now only 2 top-level groups are still in town, Abel's Crimson Sword and the White Brigade. Soon after, Abel and his teammates make their way to Hugh's office, with Abel visibly irritated at the prospect of working alongside the White Brigade, mostly because he can't stand their leader. The girls in his party bluntly tell him to stop acting like this, and Abel grudgingly pulls himself together before entering. Unfortunately, the leader of the White Brigade, Phelps, is already inside waiting, and Abel struggles immensely not to show his annoyance. Once everyone is seated, Hugh explains the serious situation. Goblins have been found on the 5th floor and their report is completely reliable. Both Crimson Sword and White Brigade must immediately enter the dungeon and thoroughly investigate for any further signs of a potential monster outbreak. Hugh mentions grimly that the last outbreak was 10 years ago, and although it's too soon, he can't rule out the possibility of another one happening now. Hugh offers each team an advance payment of 100 gold coins, with an additional 200 coins promised upon successful completion of the mission. Then Abel asks for clarification on whether they are only supposed to investigate. Hugh confirms that investigation is their sole mission, prompting Phelps to question what they are expected to do if they discover an outbreak has already begun. Hugh firmly replies that if an outbreak is indeed underway, they should retreat immediately and report back. The guild will then lock down the dungeon walls and coordinate with the knights to eliminate the threat. Hugh also notes he has already alerted both the local lord and the knights' headquarters to ensure maximum preparedness. Finally, Hugh asks both parties if they accept the mission, and without hesitation they agree. The following morning, Rio is already up and fully prepared to head out to the Northern Library. By the time his roommates start waking up, Rio explains he is planning to dive deeper into alchemy, mentioning he has heard the Northern Library carries books on more advanced topics. Ito confirms Rio has heard correctly, adding that adventurers ranked D and above have full access to that library. Amon excitedly chimes in, mentioning rumors he has heard about forbidden books hidden inside the Northern Library as well. Ryo's eyes light up immediately, but Ito quickly clarifies that only adventurers ranked B or higher are allowed even to touch those books. The boys then wish him luck on his quest for knowledge as they prepare themselves for another dungeon raid. Ryo soon reaches the Northern Library and instantly sees the calm atmosphere. Ryo eagerly begins looking around for the books he needs, though Ryo realizes that asking anyone directly about books on demons would probably cause a scene. However, just as Ryo is climbing the stairs to the first floor, he spots the elf girl Sarah standing there, and Ryo instantly stops. Meanwhile, Guild Master Hugh and the two high-ranked adventurer parties arrive at the dungeon gates. Right as they are about to open the massive doors, Abel suddenly stops Hugh, sensing something horribly wrong. Trusting his feeling, Abel orders Rin to quickly use her wind magic to scan the first floor for threats. Rin's face immediately pales because she discovers hundreds of monsters lying in ambush right behind the gate. Panic spreads instantly among the group, confirming beyond any doubt that the great monster outbreak has already begun. Hugh urgently commands everyone to fall back and alert both the knights and the guild. Back at the guild, Nils and the others notice the sudden closure notice posted on the dungeon doors, assuming it must be because of the goblin archers they reported. But just then a frantic messenger bursts into the guild, loudly announcing that a massive monster outbreak has begun. Every available adventurer must immediately rush to the walls surrounding the dungeon and fend off the monsters. Meanwhile, Ryo and Sarah have been awkwardly staring at each other, until Sarah finally breaks the silence by saying softly that it seems they meet again. They introduce themselves formally, and Sarah gently asks Ryo if he is searching for anything specific. Ryo almost tells that he is researching demons, but quickly stops himself, nervously saying he is interested in alchemy, specifically creating golems. Sarah is clearly impressed by him, telling him how difficult crafting golems actually is, and she informs him regretfully that the library doesn't have books exclusively on that topic. With a friendly smile, Sarah asked him to follow her as she knew the library well and could guide him toward helpful books. They start chatting casually about books and adventures as they walk, and Sarah reveals that she is the sole member of a B-rank adventuring party called Wind. Ryo mentions hearing from a friend that there was only one elf living in the city, and Sarah smiles softly, explaining that elves typically don't mingle with humans, but she has always been a bit different. Meanwhile, at the dungeon gates, all the adventurers in the city have gathered along the walls, preparing themselves for battle. Suddenly, the monsters smash through the heavy gate, and Guild Master Hugh immediately shouts orders, commanding everyone to unleash arrows and magic on the charging goblin horde. A fierce battle erupts, and soon the knights arrive to reinforce the adventurers, quickly stabilizing the situation. But Hugh can't shake a worry because there seem to be far more monsters than during the last outbreak 10 years ago. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Abel's party is running dangerously low on arrows. Just then Nils rushes up, carrying a large barrel full of arrows, urgently delivering a message from Hugh. Abel's group must face the dungeon's boss monster once the goblin mobs have been dealt with. Soon enough, the majority of goblins get defeated, and Hugh quickly gives Abel and Phelps the signal to lead their parties into the final battle. They leap down from the walls, and Rin swiftly uses wind magic to soften their landing. Charging forward, they effortlessly dispatch the remaining goblins and position themselves at the dungeon entrance, waiting anxiously for the boss. Moments later, a goblin general emerges from the shadows, and everyone thinks it's finally nearing the end, but their confidence quickly shatters as two more goblin generals step out right behind him. Abel instantly realizes they are actually dealing with the Goblin King. Abel urgently explains they must take down the generals immediately, otherwise they will get significantly stronger once the king arrives. Abel swiftly assigns targets. Abel and Phelps will handle one general each, while Rin and Rihaya team up against the third. The intense fight against the goblin generals begins. Abel manages to sever his enemy's arms, but just as he is about to finish him off, Abel spots the massive figure of the Goblin King emerging at the dungeon entrance. Instinctively, Abel yells desperately for everyone to get down. An instant later, a terrifyingly powerful wind slash erupts from the dungeon, instantly cutting down all three goblin generals in a single blow. Everyone stares in shock at the Goblin King's ruthless display of power, but Abel and Phelps know they are the only ones capable of taking this monster down. They immediately team up to launch a joint assault against the Goblin King, but their weapons fail miserably against his thick armor. Thinking fast, Abel dashes directly towards the Goblin King, activating his skill to phase through the king's devastating attack. Closing in rapidly, Abel uses his combat technique to pierce through the king's chest armor, striking his heart, but the hit isn't enough to finish him off completely. As the Goblin King prepares to counterattack, Abel quickly signals Rin to finish it and get out of the way just as Rin unleashes her wind spear. the magical attack passes harmlessly through Abel and hits the Goblin King, finally killing him. The adventurers breathe a collective sigh of relief, believing they have finally won, but none of them realize this nightmare is far from over, as something even more sinister lurks deeper within the dungeon. So now what will happen next? Subscribe to our channel to find out what will happen next. Friends, before we wrap up, we've recently launched a membership program, where you can enjoy perks like early access to videos and exclusive content just for members and many more to enhance your interactions. If you're interested, consider joining our membership. To enjoy these benefits, check out the link in the description to join. So friends, if you enjoyed our recap video, please like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.